despite what people may portray, these books, a lot of times, especially when you talk about like political philosophies, ain't nothing but some nigga talking. Like, understand that. Like, and that nigga might be right about a bunch of shit, but he also might be full of shit. Just like any other YouTuber, any other motherfucker, and people elevate books like they're above the bullshit. And I'm like, dog, they're not. And I don't care. I don't care if you're talking about motherfucking Marx, my nigga.
When he was killed, all of those kind of insurrectionary, anarchist kind of little affinity groups came out, and it was like all hands on deck for anti-police time.
You gotta respect my mind, but you will respect my grind. I won't get it out the mud.
So this is gonna be the season finale of Fractured Society, but it's also going to be the first episode of the new Out the Mud series. And what Out the Mud's going to be is I'm going to interview people, whether activists or people just in the struggle, and have conversations about their lives, but also our lives. So it's going to be not just interviews, but it's also going to be like talking back and forth. I'm going to talk to them first and like just engage in natural conversation from that point forward. So if people like this, make sure to leave comments, the comment section, all that good stuff, and likes and all that stuff. So I know y'all want to keep this coming. I got a few friends trying to get my dad to get on. My dad is a little nervous about the idea, but see if we can talk him into it. And basically, it's gonna come from the point of the human side of the spectrum. So everything's kind of be laced with politics in some degree, but it's also gonna be politics from the perspective of humanity, not politics from the perspective of academia or theory, but instead how it actually affects people on the day-to-day. And I'm going to try to draw that out for people who aren't necessarily political, you know what I mean? Without coaching them, you know what I mean? But try to draw it out by like just asking questions. But also going to share some of my experiences as well. So it's a new little mix I don't think I've ever seen on YouTube before. So hopefully y'all like this. And yeah. And hopefully I broke down good enough that it makes sense. So you're my co-host for Fractured Society, right? And also in a real life comrade, IRL. An IRL comrade. I know we got to talk about internet speak. So IRL comrade, you know what I mean? But what shaped you as a person? What like shaped your experiences from like childhood to made the foundations of the character of who you are as a person?
It's kind of hard to find like a beginning point because kind of, you know, as far as I go back, I've always been stubborn as hell, and I don't like seeing things that I feel are wrong in front of my face without doing something. I guess it like comes back to my family as well, because like I was raised by my mom, who was single at the time, but my sister is like technically my half sister or whatever. Her dad, pretty much the closest thing to my dad. He's an immigrant, and his second wife was as well. And so like growing up early, you know, some of my earliest experiences are seeing that just racism, just the way that they were treated, you know, like the way that they were treated as others when at home and with them, like I was completely safe. Like I was loved. I saw them as, you know, as people who had so much to give me, like so much of my push and my drive to like be able to just be in this world comes from what I learned from them as well. So, you know, these types of things, growing up poor as hell, and those things kind of led me to go, well, even if I could fit in with these fucks, like I don't want to. Like these racist pieces of shit over here, these guys who have all the money, these guys, you know, I just don't even want to be a part of that. Like even if I could, because I know what that means, you know. It effectively means I got to be like, this part of my family isn't my family. And that's fucking bullshit. My mom's side of the family is like kind of like Scotch Irish, kind of like we're all, you know, pretty loud and all that, and pretty working class. Like, you know, the people with money on that side of the family have it from like things like Boeing and shit, you know, like working 12, 15, 16 hours at Boeing every day or whatever, you know. Back in the day, definitely like a working class experience, but even seeing those different sides of it, I was able to go, well, wait, the world makes you, you know, the world draws lines, and it makes you take sides. And, you know, I saw that from an early age. And so, you know, started that trajectory, and I just never stopped so far.
Big facts, big facts. I guess, so I know that you're really close to your mom and stuff like that, you know, from our personal relationship. How did watching your mom like struggle and have to work and then carry your family load shape you?
it was the instant counterbalance to all the bullshit propaganda in this world of like poor people are lazy and they're, you know, welfare this and that. Because like, you know, I was growing up through welfare to work, where like the Democrats were kicking motherfuckers off welfare and shit all through the 90s. So like, you know, my mom worked a lot too, like sometimes 3 jobs. And so it was like, you know, like I was raised a lot also. Like my sister watched, it was like kind of my sister and then my grandmother, you know, when my mom's at work and stuff. So I was, you know, and then me just being a latchkey kid, because that was still back in the day when it was like you're a kid, you know, you just walk home, you don't set the place on fire, and like you know, you learn how to like do certain things. Like, you know, I definitely didn't appreciate the time I had with my mom because like as a kid, because, you know, just knowing that, oh crap, like we're constantly doing this, and there's all these pressures, and you don't get to spend as much time with folks that you want. And it's precisely because of, you know, I didn't have the language at that time, but being a pro, you know, and yeah, so it also led me to just, you know, like my sister and I, we at an early age, and my sister's like 10 and a half years older. I was, you know, we're both pretty young. We're like, yeah, we got to look out for each other. And, you know, we kind of agreed, you know, we'd have to probably take care of our mom when we got older, and just how we were going to look out for each other. And, you know, so in some ways, yeah, there was a lot of struggle, but it, like in other ways, like without it, I would have like fought. If I had even dealt with like half the crap I've dealt with in my life, I would have just fallen apart, you know.
Yeah.
But somehow I'm still hanging on by a thread. So like, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, y'all doing a lot, right? Because you, I remember back in the day when we first met, you were talking about how you wanted to move your mom in with you and have your family and your sister come, and you know, you've gotten to a degree of doing that by moving your mom and by moving your sister in and being able to have that family unit maintained, which I think is a beautiful thing, because it's something that's super rare in this society, which is honestly really backwards, because all of human history is how we function, right? We try to stay together as a pack of the family, and when you had marriages and stuff, it was 2 families coming together, and you know, that's how like communities were originally formed in the first place, if I had to guess, you know what I mean? And so no, I think that's a really powerful thing to be doing in the first place and trying to maintain, because everything about the culture tells us to do the opposite, right? Push your kids away, push your family away, send your parents to an old folks home, send your kids off as soon as they hit 18. And I think that's just honestly backwards personally. And that's coming from somebody who, on my end, didn't have a family, or really, like my grandma was really abusive and toxic and stuff. But my step grandmother, on the other hand, who was the person who actually showed love to me out of anybody in my family, they were very much like in your mom's situation of having to work hella to carry everything. And in fact, was carrying a lot away from my grandfather, which is his own problem. But yeah, no, so I could relate to that in that way. But also, as far as like my personal grandma, I was just out there. You know what I mean? Grandma did not give no rat's ass about me. But so it's kind of ironic that I value those things as much, but I always respected that about what you're doing specifically in your own family unit, because it's so rare, and it's literally like the opposite of what it tells you to do in society. Society's like, push your family away.
I was just going to say, there's definitely pressures from it, you know, like, you know, we all get on each other's nerves from time to time. It's just people, you know, we're prickly at sometimes, but you know, it's like, and there is like, part of it is like necessity. Like my mom's getting older, so it makes sense that I can be there to like help make sure that there's dinner every night, healthy, follows the diets or whatever. I can go pick up, you know, medication and all that type of stuff. But also part of it is like, yeah, like this is what people have done, like made communities and like looked out for each other. You know, it's like I was doing caregiving work, right? And I quit because I pretty much had like a total breakdown, like a few months before 2020. So like right before COVID hit and shit. And it was just like that cemented like knowing that I made a good decision, just because like so many people got left out to dry. And it was just like older folks, working class older folks who've been like shuffled off into like institutions and facilities.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I think that's real. I mean, I think not only that, but like there's so often like also children being thrown away too as soon as they hit that 1-8 number, like that's supposed to be, because they became adults, right? Like what is becoming adults in the first place? But because they became adults, they're just thrown out there, right? And it doesn't matter if it's 18, 13, 16. It doesn't matter. Whatever that is, I don't think there should be like this idea. And I think one thing that's really important that you pointed out was actually it's not just the good times, right? Like community can be prickly. Community can be really frustrating and angry you a lot of sometimes, and family very much as well. But it's the foundation to what makes us great as a species is when we do those things. All the other shit that we value that we've done is really honestly garbage. Like, you know what I mean? It's just waste. And when I say garbage, because it is waste. It's not really anything actually useful. I mean, besides maybe telecommunications the way we have it now, where we communicate across the world in an instant. That's kind of cool. I'm not going to shit on that. But there's a lot of things that is just that waste. Just plastics and toys and stuff that we do not really need. And I'm not saying toys don't matter for kids, but you know, the way we do things and the way we value people or the lack thereof is kind of wild. What brought you out to your first demonstration and what that looked like for you?
Well, I had been raised in a family where, like, you know, like my uncle is a hippie and my mom was never like super like crazy radical politically. You know, she's a socialist and stuff, but like, you know, she was never like crazy radical because she was taking care of kids. You know, she had my sister when she was like 20, you know, and, you know, so she's been, you know, doing that, focusing on that. And I was born when she was 30. So, you know, I got raised with like labor stories, you know, the stories of the Wobblies in Washington. And like, I thought of them as, you know, freaking heroes because I was like, hell, dude, you know, these are people who were looking out and they were like explicitly anti-xenophobic. You know, it was like, you know, because it's really hard, especially for me. Like, I think back on like the 1800s or whatever, the early labor movement. And besides like some of the anarchist ones, I'm like, oh, yeah, they would have told me that my family wasn't welcome. Like, and then if my, you know, like what? Like, you know, so it's like the stories of the Wobblies and stuff. I was like, oh, that's so dope. And I also learned about like the history of the early settlements here. So like, I learned about Chief Leschi and Chief Nisqually, like, leading their war bands against Seattle in the first Battle of Seattle. So I was 12, 2 months from my 13th birthday, and the news started talking about the WTO and how all the crazy anarchists were going to come and destroy everything and, you know, piss on the rich people's parade and how bad that was. And I was like, dude, I know exactly where I'm going. And so I did. And yeah, I was there like Wednesday and Friday, and I got stuck in the city on Friday, and then so I had to get, you know, a ride from my family and stuff. That kind of solidified it because, you know, that was like, it was really cool because I saw like, not just like, you know, the dreaded people in black, but I saw kind of like a cross section of what it takes to actually do something big like that. Like, it wasn't just one group. It wasn't just like, we're the cool people and like, we're doing this, or, oh, this other group is doing that. No, it was like everybody. It was a huge coalition of people. People were all over the place, like, you know, like all different types of people. And there was like that understanding of difference, that understanding that like, you can't shut down like some big, huge like event or thing like that with just like one politically unified, like ideologically pure group, you know, because where would have I fit in? Like the little 12-year-old kid who's like, man, I'm pissed off at the world. And this is, you know.
They would have told you to go get arrested with them.
And it did happen a few times as, you know, a young person. I kind of wised up. Like, you know, I was never, you know, only one time I did like kind of one of those more symbolic arrests to try and like slow things down and like gum up the works, you know, and we did gum things up a bit, but, you know, even at that point I was like, yeah, it probably would have been better if I had done another course of action, but we live and we learn.
You know me for most of my political organizing career. For a long time I've been doing this, and you know how my stance has always been on that. I was like, nigga, I went to jail since I was a kid. Fuck that. Get away with it. Get away with it. Stop what you're trying to stop and get away with it. I get it's a phase for a lot of people. But I guess because for me, I was always like, no, I've been getting arrested since I was 14. And hell no. Why do I want to let them take me? That makes no sense. But I know.
Like, yeah, it was like 12 at the WTO, but then like I was like 13, and then 14 were my first arrests at demonstrations. But then like, I think I was like 13 and I got arrested. I got picked up in like a stolen car with some friends and shit. I didn't even know it was stolen. That was like one of my first, like, okay, this guy's just gonna like tell me we can, his neighbor lets him borrow his car. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
I'm not advocating stealing cars, but that's the best thing when you just don't know. Even if you know, you just don't know, and you will go home. Don't say shit. Shut up. You don't know. No, that's their car. What are you talking? I don't know. That's legit. That's legit. That's a legal car. You guys are tripping. Stop trying to blame people for that's your story. Stop trying to blame people for stuff they didn't do. That's the story you're telling. Stop trying. You guys are lying. I don't believe you. You're the police. You lie. I don't trust anything you said. You're just trying to get me to say bad stuff about my friend. I'm not trusting you. Yep. You'll go home. You'll go home, I promise you. Because by law, at least it depends on what state you're from. But if you're in Washington State,
oh yeah,
you will never get arrested unless you admit knowledge of it being stolen. They will take you, they will hold you, and they'll release you. You'll be there for a few hours. It's going to be annoying. You'll be out. Whoever the driver is, you got to start raising them bail to get them out because they're going to be stuck. You know what I mean? So you got to bail your homie out once you get out. But do you think or feel like people were irresponsible when they're trying to get you to get arrested on purpose when you were younger? Like adults were irresponsible?
I have like feelings about that now as like a critique of like an overall like process, but I don't know if it's necessarily like irresponsibility. I think it's more that they're like, people get so blinded by like this ideological set of like, oh, we need to do it this way because this is how they did it in the past, or this is how they did it before, or this is the right way to do it. And so they get so wrapped up. Okay, yes. In the instance that it was like, it depends. Like, because like you look at like, for example, like I think it's all contextual because like, for example, the IWW back in the day, like we're talking in the teens, they would go out, they'd soapbox. Cops would arrest the person, the wob. All the other wobs would start flooding the town. They'd start hopping trains and flood the town, and they'd block up the local jail to the point where the jail would just have to be like, God damn it, just let these guys out so they can get the fuck out of town. That is a specific time and place where it could actually be useful because you're looking at the resources that one little police department has to deal with something that's low level that they know that, but like as a tactic in social struggle, as like, this is how we're going to like change things. No. And I think that there's some people who know that and they still push it because people will listen to them and they'll be like, this person's important bigwig or whatever. But a lot of them they don't think about it. They're like, oh, well, it didn't work the last times that we've tried it, but this next time will be different. It'll be different next time. So I don't know. I don't want to like imply people have like nefarious reasons. I think it's more like
I wasn't trying to suggest it was nefarious. I just think it gets, especially number youth, it can get irresponsible specifically. I mean, I think it's not a smart tactic no matter what. And I'll be very clear about that. That's my opinion about it. I just don't think there's better tactics. I think it's really taxing our resources. I think people might end up with stuff on their record, especially the young people. Young people don't have shit on their record right now. Probably need to be like, let them be a little older before you try to push those decisions on them. And I think, I'm not saying they can't do it, but I think we should question if we should suggest them doing it. And I think that's where I draw a line personally, is like, I'm never going to suggest it to nobody. But even if I was in that mindset, I'm not going to do that to young people, because you're talking about things that, yeah, it may just go away, but it might not. You know what I mean? You're leaving it up to some people that we can't trust. Do we trust them with children? Have they had a good record of being trusted with the children's future? Because I don't think they have. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just... Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to encourage any young person to do something stupid or just something that'll just get them clapped up. But at the same time, all I'm going to say is, like, I'm happy that the stupid arrests that I got wrapped up in it, like, activist shit happened mostly
when we met, or around that time, because I feel like we met around John T, right?
Yeah, that was like what, like right after the air, like kind of like right after port militarization resistance. So like there was like a little bit of a lull, People had kind of like gotten broken up a bit in the Salish Sea area, the Puget Sound, from that. But then John T. Williams got shot, and all those kind of networks and more just kind of came out of the woodwork, and we're like, yeah, we can keep doing this. Through the mid 2000s, like, you know, after the WTO, it was like a lot of the anti-war stuff and different anti-globalization and different environmental stuff was kind of like the anarchist movement in the Pacific Northwest was kind of coalescing around those things. But we were all kind of like scattered a bit, and it was always kind of like at other groups' whims, you know, like during the anti-war stuff, we'd always try and get the block out or be like, yeah, Masca, you know, be a little bit more confrontational. And, you know, we'd even have other protesters trying to like point us out to the police. But port militarization resistance, when people really started trying to block the port in like 2006, I don't know, like 2005, 2006 it started, I think, and then went into like 2008.
To protest the war in Iraq and police brutality aimed at demonstrators in the past 2 weeks. Police beat back and repeatedly used pepper spray on peaceful protesters who were trying to stop military shipments to and from Iraq in the port of Olympia. At least 66 people have been arrested, 150 others badly injured since the protests began November 7th. On Saturday, demonstrators used nonviolent direct action to block military equipment for 17 hours, forced a convoy back into the port. Olympia Port Militarization Resistance is a group that was formed in 2006 by community peace activists. They wanted to, quote, end their participation in the illegal occupation of Iraq by stopping the military use of the port of Olympia.
There was a much higher ratio of like anarchists organizing against like the military shipments to the Middle East through the ports. It took on a much more kind of like insurrectionary anarchist model where it was more like networks people. There was less like formal organizations and like formal political parties doing their like, this is our thing. And it was more people like trying to like get into the port and getting tear gas and then like hitting us with, like, you know, the grenades and all that shit. And it was like through that a bunch of networks kind of formed. The army had an informant, a guy trying to get kids to do terrorism. Like he was like taking people out, like training people with like guns and being like, oh, we got to do terrorism now. You got to blow some stuff up. And most everybody was like, you're really freaky, dude. Like we're, you know, like, yeah, it was. And the military used that guy to like something Townley, I think. But because of that situation in 2010, when John T. Williams was killed, it was in 2010, I think, 2009 to 2010, when he was killed, all of those kind of insurrectionary anarchist kind of little affinity groups came out, and it was like all hands on deck for anti-police time. And we knew that like a lot of the liberal groups wouldn't be able to like push against us as much because more of the people on the ground, just random people coming to the march, would automatically be taking more of our side of just like automatically fuck the police. We don't care about your pamphlet that tells us about like your political party. We hate that motherfucker with a badge because they're straight up murdering people in the streets. So like, that's why I think that it had like a level of militancy from like the anarchist side, so that like there was less of a chance of like other kind of political movements or like political tendencies to try and like tame the crowds that were like just obviously and understandably super pissed off and ready to like trash the city that was murdering people.
What was your first impression you can remember, if you can remember it at all? If you can, no worries. When you met me, what was like the first thing that happened? Because I can't remember. I forgot. It's so long ago at this point.
I just remember you. I was like in all black with a bunch of anarchists, and then I saw you. It literally just in all red, but like with like, I can't remember if you had a megaphone or not, but you were like yelling, but like you weren't with like the boring doofy like sign up for our mailing list groups. You were like, let's shut this shit down. Like, and I was like, okay, I see you. Like, this is somebody I can trust standing next to me in the streets, you know? Because like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand by a bunch of people who, if something bad happens, they're going to like stampede me or some shit, you know? Like,
right.
No, I see the people that I'm like, no, I can trust this part of the crowd, and then again, it didn't matter that like we kind of saw we were from some different tendencies. Like I see how a person acts, you see how I act, and we start interacting with each other. And it's no longer like they're from this group or that group. It's like, oh no, we're standing next to each other joking, and then, respond to this thing over here. And we start building that rapport, that like actual just human rapport.
Yeah, I remember you weren't one of the people I was pissed at, because I remember, so at that time period, it was, I was actually mentoring Nights of People, right? It was one of the youth in M's group, right? In the M school that was doing like organizing stuff, and they would like be mentoring them and had like organize, trying to make sure they come out, and we try to make sure they're safe and stuff like that. But then it was like some random, actually I know who it is now. People told me who it was. So if you're watching this, I know who it was. You. I know. Yes, you're blonde ass. Just so if you don't think I know, you're blonde. I'm not gonna leave it at that. But I know who it is. We know who it is. All right. Our names might be a little more than similar. Yes. I'm leaving it at that. So grabbed the fucking bullhorn and smashed it because they assumed we were like RCP or something. But it was fucking literally the high school kids' bullhorn, and we were like literally the mentors coming out to make sure they were good at the protest. And bro, M's not gonna be on some smoke shit, but I remember we went to Autonomia. And I was like ready to knock somebody out. I was like, bro, y'all want smoke, man. You gotta be fucked up. Like, I know it wasn't you, because I remember me and you like completely separately, because you weren't blocked up or nothing. I actually remember that. You weren't blocked up. I remember your hair and shit. So first, I'm not gonna tell the feature, but specific feature that you have, I remember that. So I was like, all right. Sorry, I mean, yeah, you've been blocked up for a lot, but you haven't blocked out everyone. I think you were on a bike too. I think you had a bike with you, if I remember right. Okay. So you might have been walking with the bike or something. I kind of vaguely remember it, but yeah.
Do that kind of thing. I would just like bike around and like kind of scout, and I have medical stuff in my bag, so I was just kind of like, if somebody gets hurt, I can respond. If I see people I trust, I'm telling everybody in the crowd, like giving status reports, doing whatever, like, whatever I could. So yeah, probably makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah. So, but yeah, no, that was the first introduction to anarchists when I was still just like I was like what I call a lower seat communist, right? So I didn't believe in these big, weird organizations. Okay, that's not true. I believe in big organizations, but I didn't even believe in these big hierarchical organizations. I didn't believe like this. So I was an anarchist and didn't realize I was an anarchist. You know what I mean? Because I didn't like have the words for it. It was like, I believe in we should have our own decision as much localized as possible, and then we should make collective decisions when needed, but like direct democracy type shit, you know what I mean? Which I and then after dived into it, after being more anarchist, but my first impression was literally like, oh my God, these dumb ass white kids. And don't get it wrong, I'm very clear an advocate, like there's way more than white anarchists and white black bloc, but the ones that usually do stupid shit, that do stuff before they figure out what's actually going on, they usually are, But so I remember just showing up so pissed, like I'm about to file it, like, bro, you got me fucked up. And then they're like, of course they were protected who it was, and they're like, we're not gonna tell you, but we want to say we're sorry, and we thought you were the RCP, and maybe figure shit out before you act. Like the person who did it was being a dumbass, they being kind of do dumbass shit sometimes. Like
friendly fire, taking a bullet for the RCP, shit. Dude.
Like, bruh, like we definitely were not even know. I didn't even know who Baba Vakian was yet. And once I learned who Baba Vakian was, it was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? A lot of people who watch mine videos haven't been to protests, or at least haven't been to protests in big cities, so they're not familiar with it, but like, they're cults. Like, they're a cult around this one white dude who claims to be this major revolutionary that really didn't do anything but like a newsletter or something. Like, it was not really that crucial. But
he was kind of like talking crap about all the Maoists because he's in the 60s, and he said he was kind of like trying to be like, I can like do Maoism better than the other Maoists. And then like people didn't like him, and so he like went into self-exile, and that's where he's been living for decades. He's just in Paris because the rough life of living in self-exile that he chose. move to Paris.
And for me, when I was showing up to John T, before that, I had done Cop Watch way back in the day when I first got out of prison. You know what I mean? And then it got to Cop Watch and then transportation type justice, which was the nope cards, giving people cards and say nope, we're not going to pay because, and giving out whole handouts of why we're triple taxed on the fares. And so I was working on I guess more of a community justice and police accountability. I say police accountability, you know what I mean? But documenting what the fuck these assholes are doing so that hopefully something would happen. Which is wild because it becomes so far from back then. I remember running around lugging these big old cameras around, trying to chase the cop cars. Yeah. I was college age at that point. I wasn't in college, but I was college age. So I was running around with this camera without no car, trying to videotape the police in downtown. You know what I mean? It was ridiculous, right? And people didn't really have good cell phone video. I'm making this on my cell phone, but quality wasn't like that back then. And so, people wouldn't really have anything to video to the police when they did anything, because even if you did do it, those cameras wouldn't be able to, it'd be all pixelated. You couldn't tell what's going on. And now we see people catch it left and right. And it's wild because it feels like not just Seattle, but across the country, a lot of the police abolitionists, wouldn't even be abolitionists, but police accountability movements, because we weren't really talking about abolition. We're this motherfucker can't get away with it, is really what it was. Yeah. It wasn't full, there shouldn't be police yet. A few of us said that, but we didn't think it would actually become a movement. Now, it's a half a movement, I will say, because people don't fully mean it, right? You know what I mean? But I fully mean it. You fully mean it, but a lot of people don't fully actually mean it.
It's also hard to deal with the consequences of that, and some of it comes from if you've never had the protection of the police, and if they've only ever hurt you, you just live your life without them. You're just of course you don't. That's not everyone's lived reality. The police protect certain classes against others. It's just I'm not surprised that somebody, might coming from the, some more upper class or some kind of something like that is going to have a baptism through fire where they're oh, the police, why are they coming to stop us? We're doing our First Amendment. And then they get cracked upside the head and they're oh God, what the hell is happening? It's not just a few bad apples. Shit.
Speaking of that, so we were fucking up there a little bit during the John T. rebellion. I guess rebellion is an overstatement, but protests that had a little rebellious energy. And, maybe a few cop cars may have got smashed here and there and some shit. It wasn't to the level that happened 2020, but it was a little boiling. They got boiled a little bit. So
it's those things that led to the continual keep pushing every time, but especially for the Pacific Northwest, if it wasn't for John T. and then Oscar Grant and then just again and again, and people coming out and trying to push it
Oscar Jerome too. No, I'm saying, I'm also adding that, and Oscar Jerome for
on the sounder or whatever, the train.
Yeah.
Yep.
Link, actually. There's a link.
The link. Yeah, the train. Oh, the station, dude. That shit was fucked up.
You know what I mean? We had consistently elevating resistance and tension with the police. And sometimes it's just a few of us. Sometimes it was just 15, 20 of us. I remember there was a point where the police were going around after John T. where they were getting bad flack because they killed somebody who was carving by shooting them in the back and the side and all that, just executed him, right? And so they were getting flack because of doing that. And so they had their families come out and do pro-police rallies. While people are mourning the murders they did, right? And so we had counter protests and stuff like that, escalating stuff. I'll be real, escalating exactly, which I feel was necessary. But then that consistently went for years, and then Occupy hit. You know what I mean? And Occupy, I bring up because that's where we got that one saying, the baptization by mace. I remember the radical numbers grew substantially in Occupy. But most of the people who became radical hated us at first. Hated us. They thought we were troublemakers until we predicted psychics exactly what the police would do every time. Because people had these...
And we were there with water, we were there ready. We were like, they're about to do this, and we're prepared. Like,
well, I think it was a good combo too, because we warned them beforehand. Like, no, if you do that, they're gonna mace you, they're gonna hit you, they're gonna whip your ass. And they're like, no, they're part of the 99%. I'm like, all right, find out. And we ready for the shit. We're like, okay, we about to get in the brawl right now with the police. Let's go. Like, it's gonna be what happens. And then they're just shocked. And we're like, yeah, this is why we don't like the police. This is like one of the examples of many why we don't like 12. All right? But it was by them catching so much mace. So much mace. Like, do you remember that they ran out of mace on us?
Oh, yeah. I do.
They had to have it shipped in.
I got maced a lot back then, dude. I know.
By the end, it didn't have the same effect. By the end, it didn't hit the same way anymore.
I just reverse blink at this point. I just, like, your eyes are going to get forced closed, but if you open them up for a second, every second, like, kind of thing, it helps flush your eyes, and you get this after image in it, so, like, I could still see. And like that actually happened with Jamie Dimon was in Seattle. I ended up taking a face full of mace because a friend of mine kind of like dodged behind my shoulder, and I got the mace in my face, and then the cop tried to charge me with his stick, and because I was reverse blinking, he thought I was like completely blind, and I just like tossed him over, and he was like all shocked, and his friend had to help him up and stuff. But it was wild. Like, yeah, they didn't know what to do after a bit because it was like we were so used to the mace.
Yeah, I mean, we had levels, right? Because we'd have multiple bandanas. So, like, we get one, we just rip it off and put new bananas on. Like, you know what I mean? I remember one time, I think I did it twice in one fucking day, right? They hit me with it, boom, boom, I took it off, but it didn't get me very good. So, like, I wasn't even burning at all. I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, you hit me, but you missed, essentially, right? Like, little bandanas are burnt. If I put them on my face, they're going to suck. But I got these other ones, put them back on. And I went through like 2 pairs that day. I was like, bro, y'all, we ready. We know what you're doing now. We know exactly what it is to do, because you guys it was so wild when we're sitting there. And it was the day that they maced Dorley Rainey too. It was when they ran out of mace. That day, it was like they were fried because of the Maylocks. The Maylocks people thought was Dorley Rainey drenched in mace. And though Dorley Rainey was drenched in mace, you can't tell that mace, but Maylocks looks crazy. And so when you think that's all just mace dripping off from like all the Maylocks trying to get the mace out of their face, is like, bruh.
It kind of looked crazy. Like, if you get really sprayed with it, like, I got it like directly in the eyes. So like my whole face was like at the Jamie Dimon thing because he was in, at the Sheridan, wasn't it? I can't remember which of the hotels in downtown Seattle he was at. But yeah, my whole face was like orange, and it was just like draining, and it looked like I had like a weird, like, I was like jaundiced or something, because it was like I was like all like orangey, like, dude, it was bad.
See, usually people's face turn all red, so they're like having a fever or something, you know what I mean? But you don't look, when you see the stuff, it's not, I don't know. Like, I think I couldn't see them when I was on my shit. Like, it wasn't like it was, but oh my God, they used so much of it on us. Like, but the things is all the liberals and stuff, like, they had these illusions, right? Like, that, just like a lot of people, like content creators and activists do now still, illusions about how this stuff works, right? And like how these systems work. At that time, they didn't even believe that the police would react with violence, right? They thought that the police would just, march with it. They really believed that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And this is before the whole, like, kneeling thing came into play. You know what I mean? So they can't even say, well, because of that yet.
Oh, yeah. Because, it was like, that was like why, like, anarchists from the beginning of Occupy on were, like, challenging the whole 99% thing. It was like, dude, this is stupid. Cops and Nazis are part of the 99%. But if you let those motherfuckers into the camp, we will fight them. Like, no. Get out of here with that shit. Like, it's not just like a couple of billionaires that are the problem. Like, there's an entire set of like material incentives and ideological like justifications that humans use to like take a paycheck doing shitty things. And, it's like, come on, like you can't. I'm not gonna be out here and be like, oh, we got to look out for police because they're working class. No.
I also, big problem I have with Occupy was that I wasn't going to act like the petty bourgeoisie. It's the same thing as me, the lumber proletariat person. I'm not even going to act like the proletariat. It's the same as me as a lumber proletariat person. Like, and even now, being like someone who is both like being lumber proletariat and actively proletariat, or like, I don't know, maybe even petty bourgeois, because I'm about to move into doing assaulting and shit to some degree, so that's like petty bourgeois, right? But like coming from the reality I'm still kind of in, and also the reality I've always lived in, I wasn't even nowhere near where I'm at right now, and I'm still not doing that great, right? So when I was going there, people were trying to act like we're all one. I was like, dude, you're gentrifying my neighborhood, my nigga. Like, how are we on the same page? Like, we're not on the same page. You are talking about you lost your tech job and are unemployment. Your unemployment pays you more than my job pays me. What are you talking about? You feel me? People weren't willing to accept that because they wanted to wash away their blood on their hands. You're like, no, it ain't my fault. I just do what No. You are responsible for your actions. You're responsible for the repercussions that happen from you moving, displacing people, from, taking up the jobs here, but being from somewhere completely across the country, and the people from here not being able to get access to those resources and having to leave. It's because of you. Like, you're responsible for that. And I'm not going to pretend like we're all the same now, because we don't even have the same interests. You're talking about motherfucking, you want to get better access to your jobs and employment and get better benefits and shit like that, and get your jobs back really, and tax these billionaires and take money out of politics. I'm talking about trying to get motherfuckers homes, like the motherfuckers sleeping there because they had to, that you wanted to have arrested. Like, bro, like, we ain't on the same page at all.
Bring those motherfuckers complain about like houseless people. I'm like, bro, you know what was happening the day before Occupy? These people were here because this is where they hang. This is where they are. Like, like, what are you doing? But, okay, so I understand why that call was made specifically as broad as possible. It got as many people into the streets across the country as possible. There were connections that were made that wouldn't have been made because people would have been too disparate before they met at an encampment like that and experienced that together. That being said, I'm not going to try and sugarcoat how just absolutely mind-bogglingly annoying it was trying to kind of like baby walk liberals through material, just like the bare basis of like a material like analysis of something. Because again, it was always these kind of liberal conceptions of like political power and this and that, and it was like, you guys, you have a home. Like I was homeless. I was like, I had been like couch surfing with a friend trying to look for work up in Everett right before it happened, and it started, and I was like, well, I'm heading back down to Seattle. And that's why I was like so much like, let's open up squats. And it wasn't just because like I like squatting. It was also because I was like, man, I'd really like to be able to sleep one night instead of like trying to guard this camp for like a month straight and get like 10, 15 minutes of sleep a night before the cops come in and start rousting people and shit. And us being like, okay, get the fuck out of here. No, we're guarding this, this camp. Like,
yeah, man. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, I think of like, even though I wasn't housed at the time, though I had been houseless before that, I was like in a really exploitative situation, right? Like, I was in this transitional living program, right? Which charged me $500 for a room, to rent a room at that time, which was not cheap. That was not cheap because I'm an ex-convict and they could just literally fleece. The organization is called Pioneer Human Services, by the way, because fuck them. But like, you know what I mean? And I was just some ex-con just barely getting by, working at a shelter, and it came down like, let's go. Like, let's make it happen. You know what I mean? And man, Occupy, there's a lot of things, so many things, from like the shaping of all these liberals turning into like anarchists and communists and things like, and turning into radicals because of realizing that, damn, these things actually make sense. They're like, they didn't believe us at first, and then like, actually, they make sense. It's how I feel on YouTube, right? It's just how, like, people are like, oh, you don't know what they're talking about. Look, I'll listen to this. whoever big streamer it is, like, that nigga doesn't do shit. I've been doing shit for years, so I know what I'm talking about. I don't care what he took in poli-sci. I don't care if they're a fucking lawyer. I don't give a shit. Lawyers come in and fucking moving up, and anybody who's been in the movement and organized can speak to that. Anybody can talk about how academics come in and fuck shit up. They can speak to that because we've been around long enough. You see it happen over and over again because they come and think they know, but have it step foot on the ground to see how their theories actually play out, or if they're fucking wrong. So like they just like all these things are like, I've read this book, that book, but that doesn't do any good when you're not looking at terrain right now and what is actually working right now and seeing actually what that means. And also, the problem with these books is, despite what people may portray, these books a lot of times, especially when you talk about like political philosophies, ain't nothing but some nigga talking. Like, understand that. Like, and that nigga might be right about a bunch of shit, but he also might be full of shit. Just like any other YouTuber, any other motherfucker, and people elevate books like they're above the bullshit. And I'm like, dog, they're not. And I don't care. I don't care if you're talking about motherfucking Marx, my nigga. No, they're not. Marx has some bullshit. Like, the most active group that we've seen within inside the U.S. towards revolutionary movement is the same group that Marx said was anti-revolutionary, which was the lumpen proletariat. And one thing I always love to point out to people that people don't want to hear is the lumpen proletariat has been the backbone of the movements in this country the whole fucking time. But people want to make it the academics, the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeois, the paid organizers, and that's cap. That's motherfucking cap. And I'm telling you, because I've seen it, and I've talked to our elders who were there and are still real as fuck to today. And they say the same damn thing.
They're trying to make the world fit into their ideas, into their like little program. And that's the problem. Like, I think one of the things that's helped me the most in my life is I've never really like been like a person who is like, oh, I need to find like the one answer.
Just saying. Yeah. So this has been the last of Fractured Society and the first of Out the Mud with the Comrade Jelly. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment if you like this. If you are seeing this end, you're probably not seeing the whole video. So if you want to see the whole 2.5-hour video, you got to become a Patreon and throw a few bucks this way. Also, if you like video gaming, I also got a gaming channel called Barefoot Brother. Check out my music.
All money is blood money. Cotton picking presidents hand bloody. All money is blood money. War for the gold, leaving children running. All money is blood money. Poppin' wicked murder, we find it funny. All money is blood.
What? Can you say something for me? Play the trailer.
Play the trailer.
Yes, I'm biting Beta Squad. Ha ha!
It is 1966, watching from a crowd, a mob of communists of the CCP.
Those things about autonomous systems, not necessarily the fact that they can think faster or do better than a person, but they can also just throw away their lives.
Holy moly, Batman, look who we found. The bastard that invented Skynet. Adolf Eichmann said he isn't responsible because he was following orders. That it was on him to make those decisions and he had no choice in the matter. That he was just doing his job.